There it is, made history, huh?
Okay, now, are we ready?
Yep.
Okay, well, being in this area for myself 88 years, and my ancestors for 100 and some, we've got a description and an article on Jacob Rice, my great-great-grandfather, who migrated here in when did he come? 1821, wasn't it? Jacob came here in 1821. He came from Fairfield County, Ohio, seeking a new home and place to live. And this is an article that appears in the history book in the Mara County History of 1883 history. Jacob Rice was born in Chester Township, Chester County, Pennsylvania, March the 7th, 1796. He migrated to Fairfield County with his parents while yet a youth. He married later to Lydia Wickiser, and with their young family came to Canaan Township in 1821, which at that time was part of Marion County. He was one of the early pioneers of this area, as told by these clippings taken from earlier histories. The history of this territory begins in the year of 1821. It was in the spring of that year that Jacob Rice came from Greenfield Township in Fairfield County, Ohio, prospecting for land and a new home. He found the unbroken forest, a swamp, and the Wyandot Indians, and very few other people here at the time. Among those was Comfort Olds and Abraham Andrews. Mr. Andrews had entered land immediately south of the mound above that has been described as an Indian mound. Should I tell what that is? On this now County Road 59. And this place is now occupied by the, what's your names? Violet and Mala's last name?
Staffords.
Oh, occupied by the Staffords. One week before, while Mr. Olds had taken possession only the day before of the same land, Mr. Andrews had taken, Stephen, you'll have to edit some of this, I think. Mr. Andrews had entered land immediately south of the mound above described, just 1 week before, while Mr. Olds had taken possession only the day before of some land he had entered in the near vicinity. Mr. Andrews was sick of his deal and induced Mr. Rice to buy him out. This was the first sale of property in the area, noted anyway, within the township, occasioned on the part of Mr. Andrews, merely a ride from the land office in Delaware, Ohio, to the land itself, and the expense of executing and filing the deed. On this land Mr. Rice has always resided, though at the present time it is owned by his son. Here he built his cabin, while on the adjoining quarter section Mr. Olds was likewise busily engaged. They became acquainted with each other in the unbroken forest, Mr. Rice being led to where Mr. Olds was working by the sound of an axe. They were neighbors and must associate with each other, because there were no other neighbors within several miles. When Mr. Rice had completed his cabin, he returned to Fairfield County for his family. In August of this year, he gathered together the articles absolutely necessary and moved them into his new home. At that time, his family was composed of a wife and 3 small children. With the conveniences at hand, 4 days were occupied in the journey, a journey which would now occupy about 4 hours, but now it'd be maybe 2, I guess. This was the best season of the year for this purpose, as at this time the streams were so low they might be easily forded We said that Mr. Rice found on his coming in the township uninhabited with the Wyandot Indians. They were friendly and not unfrequently were employed by the white settlers in clearing their land, rolling logs and the like. Mr. Rice tells of one Tom Lyons, the homeliest old devil you ever seen. His wife, however, was a marked contrast to himself, very fine looking with hair long enough to drag on the ground. She was the envy of many white women, while Tom was exceedingly proud of her and treated her with the courtesy and respect accorded to the wife in Christian communities. An illustration answering the descriptive question, "Who is my neighbor?" is given of these early days and is worthy a record where it may not be obliterated. How do you say that? Obliterated. Mr. Olds was very poor and must have suffered for the necessities of life, had it not been for his stranger neighbor, Mr. Rice, who divided with him the supplies he was able to obtain and bring them with him from Greenfield. There was no thought that any return would be made for these things, but a time of need brought about a possibility of restoration when it was especially appreciated. Mr. Olds moved to the plains in Marion County and put up a horse mill. The sickly year came. The squirrels stole everything. Corn was worth only $1 a bushel, and everything else in proportion. Mr. Rice went to the mill at the plains and obtained 2 bushels, for which Mr. Olds would receive in remuneration. Corn was too valuable to sell, but not to be given away to one who had proven himself a friend in need. When Jacob came here, he had been through this area serving with in the War of 1812 with General Harrison. He came through central Ohio and upon returning to Fairfield County, he married his lady friend, Lydia Wickizer, on May the 4th of 1815. And it was in 1821 they migrated to what is now Canaan Township in Morrow County, starting life anew in a tent near the spring, which is yet flowing. Here they built a log cabin, cleared the land, and raised their family. And they are both buried in the Rice Cemetery on his land, on a knoll overlooking the acres they cleared and tilled. Their first family certificate and medal was accepted for them by their great-great-granddaughter, and that's me. The number is 878, First Families of Ohio. Dolores Ruth Gray Arnold. 1600 State Route 309, Caledonia, Ohio. Look out there now. Stephen, look quick.
Beautiful white snow.
I am telling you, I never have seen anything like it, have you?
Not this time of year.
Now, shall I read you about my other great-grandpa?
Mm-hmm.
You all ready now?
Action.
This is an article about John Campbell, and one of John Campbell's daughters married Jacob Rice's son, Simon, which is my great-great-grandparents. John Campbell was a farmer around Caledonia, but he was born September the 23rd, 1810, in Loudoun County, Virginia, and was the son of William and Catherine Wright Campbell. At 1 year of age, William's father had died, and let's see, he and his mother came west when he was about 5 years old, stopping first in, I forget the county, Muskingum County. There they spent a couple of years, and then they came on to up to Darby Plains, Ohio, and there they were there about the same amount of time as they were in Muskingum County, coming from there to Waldo, Ohio. And he and his mother then settled in what is now Morrow County, Ohio.
That's when she married Frederick Dunkelbarger.
Yeah. Catherine, in the meantime, had married, his mother, Catherine, had married a fellow named Frederick Dunkelbarger. I think he was in Marion County, Winton, don't you? Well, it was all Marion County. But anyway, he's buried in Marion County, we know that. Let's see. Anyway, I don't know how he had contact clear down in Ross County, Ohio, but he had met Lucinda Downs. So on January